Hi, I'm Cheryl.
I'm Dan, and welcome to our podcast,
where we're talking to real people about real problems in real situations.
Grab a cuppa while we talk founder life.
Hello and welcome to today's episode, where we are joined by Matt Roberts of Matthew Oliver's, a recruitment consultancy with a difference. In today's episode, we talk about Matt's journey from employment into business owner. We talk about the talent shortage or the employment challenges out there at the moment, and what employers can do to really stand out in a crowded market. We talked about the adoption of working from home and flexible working and the difference that has had on employment overall and recruitment. We also talked about Matt finding his way of running his own business and how he wanted to run that business, both from the business point of view, but also from managing teams with respect and trust. And of course, we also touch on what success means to Matt. So let's get into the episode. So hello and welcome, Matt.
Thanks very much.
So do you want to start off by just telling us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matt Roberts, and I run a small recruitment company called Matthew Oliver's. So we support a number of businesses across the UK trying to find good people for their teams. Typically, it's SME growing businesses that we work with. So that's what we do. Been in recruitment for some time now, since I left university. Worked in a couple of different businesses, and the last one was very much more of an outsourced recruitment model, but for big businesses, so like FTSE 100 companies. And that's kind of where the idea for Matthew Oliver's came from, to combine kind of my recruitment expertise, the more of the outsourced partnership approach, but with SME businesses. So companies can give me a call. I've worked with them for years. They know me really well, and it's an extension of their business, if you like, rather than having to explain what you do as a company every time and what the right people look like and that kind of stuff. So I think that's me in the business.
What is it that, so you said you've always been in recruitment and came straight out of university into recruitment. What was it that drew you towards it?
The honest answer was my older brother was in recruitment. So he's 8 years my senior. And I was at university doing a business and computing degree with not really much direction as to what I wanted to do when I finished. He seemed to have a role which was very sociable. You know, they were kind of going out, having drinks and that kind of stuff. I got to meet a few of his friends, and they were all very friendly and outgoing. And clearly, there was there was decent remuneration as well. So it seemed like it was quite a good fit for kind of what I wanted at that stage of my life, when when you're at university and drinking and all of that kind of stuff, really.
So it felt like natural progression from where you were to.
Yeah, I think so. And I've always been quite outgoing. All of the summer jobs or this, that, and the other that I'd done preceding university would have been, in customer facing or sales or those types of environments. So I've always been a type of person that is quite happy to talk and talk to people and communicate. And clearly, recruitment is a business where that's vitally important, and gives you those other bits and pieces where you're working in an environment of also young people that are quite outgoing, and that was the initial draw, I guess.
Interesting.
And how have you found that journey of owning a business and running a business?
It's really eye-opening, actually. Kind of working, and I'm sure it's true of any discipline, in a business and providing a service or a product or whatever it is you do, to then moving to a business owner is quite a drastic change. There is a whole host of things, and even if I was to write them down, I would miss a million and one that you do, which is part of being a business owner and not a service provider or an employee within a business. And I think I was just quite lucky that I did. I've always been quite entrepreneurial, and throughout uni and prior, I had little side hustles and like online businesses and that kind of stuff. Not really generating a fortune, but it still teaches you quite a lot about just running a business and return on investment and all of that kind of good stuff, which if you are an employee in a business, you probably don't have too much exposure to.
Yeah, no, definitely. And was I right in seeing that you've been finalists in an award recently?
Yeah, we have actually. So that was our first ever application for an award. So if I'm honest, wasn't really expecting much. We put in what we thought was a good application and then submitted it. And then I read it to someone a couple of days later, to like a completely, person who wasn't involved in initially. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, we could have done so much better. I was quite surprised to see that we were shortlisted. I think we had some really good stuff in there, like genuinely, but we could have maybe finessed it a little. But yeah, so we are now finalists of the Bristol Life Awards, which is the name slightly maybe misleading, but it's essentially just a collection of the best businesses in Bristol across a whole host of sectors. So we're within the people services sector.
Oh, congratulations! When's the award ceremony?
It is, I believe, it's the 16th of March, so not too far away. So we've got everything crossed, and it was a really proud moment actually when our names got read out. Thanks so much, Cheryl. It felt like, even though it's just a short list, it felt like a real kind of milestone in the business, and really enjoy those things actually. Each little milestone, no matter how big or small over the course of whatever you're doing, it's a really good feeling.
What drove you to apply?
It's a good question. I think the honest answer when we thought about doing any of the awards is PR. Just getting our name out there, having other people kind of aware of us. Obviously, there are a handful of other sectors. So, and we work with a lot of businesses. So I've spoken with Cheryl before a few times with regards to recruiting within finance. And I'd say at least half of our business is within that area. But the other half is working with a whole range of businesses across their recruitment needs. So any of those other businesses that are shortlisted are potential clients for us, let alone anyone else that sees it. So it's a really any opportunity like that to get our name out there is something that we're interested in. So that's what compelled me. But actually, the process of doing it really highlighted quite a number of things which I wasn't necessarily expecting or thinking about. But I would recommend anyone to do it, just because going through the motions is taking stock of what you've done and that kind of stuff, and what you've achieved in a period of time, no matter how big or small. It's really nice to take a bit of a step back and reflect.
Yeah, you're not the first person I've heard to say that. And to be fair, we felt that as well when we've applied for awards before. It's recognising your own achievements, isn't it? Which is something we don't do, especially as business owners. I don't feel we do enough.
No. And we've touched on, Cheryl, the fact that time just disappears in a day. Yet, so you're always very much kind of in the here and now, and you might be working on the business or in the business, but the fact remains that you're not taking a step back to really look at this award is specifically about last year. So we had to look at right from the beginning of 22 to the end. What have we done? What has changed? And it, the list has kept growing and growing, and it was fantastic. Big things and small. It was really good.
Oh, that's fabulous to hear. And I mean, you've definitely grown since we've known you and brought on more team members and things. So it's nice to see other businesses grow, and especially over the last few challenging years as well. Yeah.
It's been really tough. I think from our perspective, we started I say we, it was just me in a bedroom. We started maybe
great businesses start.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think it might have been 6 months before the first lockdown. So it couldn't have been the timing couldn't have been worse, really, with regards to, there was no help or support because we hadn't submitted any accounts or anything prior. It was a case of, we were lucky we'd made, I set up the business with a decent amount of savings to have some breathing space, because even though I'm a recruiter and all that kind of stuff, I have maybe not risk averse, but I wouldn't want to just do it and hope for the best, and if in 2 months' time I then drop out again because I hadn't planned well enough. But yeah, we were lucky that we had a couple of placements that in those first few months that then obviously just kept our head above water until the break started to come off.
No, and as I know we had a little chat beforehand about, and we've spoken probably quite a few times about it now, about the whole recruitment and the talent shortage and things like that. How are you seeing other businesses finding recruitment at the moment? Is it a challenge? Is it a breeze? How are you finding it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, and obviously one I get asked quite a lot. And I think the honest answer is it's really hard to recruit at the moment. Good people, no matter even the level and the skill set or the geography. So we've had administration level roles. Very little barriers to entry. Extremely hard to fill because people don't turn up to interviews and all of that kind of stuff. And they're paying really well as well. So there is no reason why that should be such a challenge. And then it goes right through, so every layer that there is. So it has been really tough. And I think I've mentioned to you before, Cheryl, but I would say that probably from December 21 or so, we noticed that it was starting to get really quite hard to get good people. And I think it was a combination of a couple of things, but one being after the lockdown, no one recruited obviously during the kind of the main part of the pandemic. Afterwards, the breaks came off. A lot of people were then suddenly hiring. After actually laying people off, I know like hospitality had a number of issues and so on. But what that means is it's simple supply and demand. There were a higher number of vacancies and there were people interested in the opportunities. And this is backed by ONS data, Office of National Statistics. We had the highest number of vacancies I think ever recorded during that time period. And then if you compare that with data from Google of people searching for opportunities and jobs, and I appreciate that's active candidates, not passive, so it's not a full picture, but that number was down, I think, 20%. So you've got a compounded issue with the most number of vacancies we've ever seen on the market with fewer people looking. So it's a compounded issue. And we are still in the hangover of that now, simply because the people that did move during that time period haven't been in a job long enough to maybe look for another position, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, if you think that there was a big move in the market, say at that kind of time, they've now only been in a job for 10 months, 12 months, and therefore it's probably still a little bit too soon for the majority of them to be looking again. And we've got the compounded impact of Brexit as well, which meant we don't have the access to European talent and individuals like we have done previously.
As that time, it sounds like a lot's gone on. It must have been quite a steep learning curve. What sort of things have you had to kind of change tack maybe around that time, or?
So it's a good point. Yeah, and I think our approach has always been very proactive. So we've talking as a recruiter, I guess, as opposed to a business owner, we've always been very focused on highlighting people, other businesses with the right kind of skill sets, and approaching them about what we genuinely believe are really good opportunities. And going back to that partnership piece, we're able to articulate that and talk about our clients' values and visions and why it's a good option for them to be, a really seriously good option for them to be considering. That has got a lot harder because even that it still does work well, and it used to work really well. But now, again, supply and demand, more people are having to do that kind of stuff because adverts on Indeed, CV searching on databases, all that kind of stuff isn't paying the dividends that they were used to. So it has got a lot harder, and we've just had to raise our game, I guess, to the next level. So rather than try and organise these compelling conversations, we're very much aware people are getting multiple messages. So we need to try and engage them early on. So whether that be, personalised video messages, things like this. We put together one pages. So all of our clients and every job we work on has a document which is, there's pictures of the type, if they're not an accountant, for instance, if they're an engineering firm, it's pictures of the type of projects they're working on. It's points of interest in their geographical area, and then really trying to articulate, right, this is a business and this is the role, and this is these are the things that you're going to be interested in, hopefully, to compel you to have a conversation with us. So yeah, we've definitely had to fine tune, I think, is probably the best way to articulate what we've had to do to ensure we keep getting results. But time to hire across the board has increased, and it will have done for everyone, so whereas a role previously might have taken 2 weeks to fill, it's now 4 or longer, and so roles that have always been tough, like Cheryl, for instance, client managers, qualified accountants in practice, who are really good, really strong communicators, good digital knowledge, all that kind of stuff are few and far between. So those types of roles will be longer still.
And how, obviously, where there is more roles available than there are candidates, what kind of things, obviously you've touched on a few things there, but what do employers looking for staff, for team members, what do they need to do to really showcase them and their business? Is it things like talking about your values and all what you can give that person joining the company, or what kind of things do they need to do?
So you've touched on a great one there, which is like their values and that kind of thing. But you also maybe started to go towards what we would call a value proposition, and that is, why does someone want to work for your company? And that's everything. It could be that 100 other companies do exactly the same as you, but their work environment isn't as good, or their benefits aren't as good, or they don't do volunteering days, or you've got a real affinity with an animal charity, or whatever it might be. That it's these little big or potentially little nuances which is just going to compel that one person to be interested, and that's all you really need for a vacancy. So if you've got a role and you're doing these bits and pieces, there will be someone keeping an eye on it. And again, we've touched on it before, Cheryl, about the fact that yourself and Pink Pig have got fantastic kind of market proposition, and you're kind of widely seen and heard, and people know you and what you're about, and clearly very approachable and all that kind of good stuff. That's obviously a big point as well, because it's very well and good having these value propositions. It might be the best you've ever heard of, but if no one hears about it, you don't know. So I think that is the key thing. But there are little things that lots of people do, and we see it time and time again with regards to struggling to recruit. And the kind of easy and the fastest tool I would give is, number one, the job titles. Lots of companies nowadays want to give very out there job titles, or do one thing or another, upsell oversell a role, or what have you. I think you really need to think about, when you're doing an advert, for instance, what is that person searching for? Are they going to be searching for? I'm trying to think of an offhand job title now for, let's say, an accounts assistant. You could call it, a cloud specialist client partner, or some completely ambiguous term, and it works great in your business and it sounds good and all that kind of stuff, but no one's putting that into Google, into Indeed, or wherever else. So you're not going to be getting the people to even see how good your market proposition is if your only approach is adverts. And then once
I guess that's something we do because we keep it simple when we're advertising. But then when we actually take them on, that's when we give them the nice title and work with them. It does, because as you say, people are not searching for those fancy terms. If they want an accountancy role, they're looking for an accountant job, or they're looking for a bookkeeper job. And
Yeah, yeah. But the amount of ambiguous job titles we see, even when so a lot of our clients will try and fill roles directly themselves. Like, fantastic, please do that. It works quite well because it's going to keep your fees, your general recruitment costs down and all that kind of good stuff, and hopefully keep you in business and performing well, which is in our best interest, because the longer our clients are performing really well, the longer they are a client. But it's important for them to think about what people are searching for. But that's only half the battle. You get someone to click on your advert, great. But now you need to convert them to an application. And then the second tip there is making sure that you're writing a job advert and not a job description. Again, people list out, and some of them are horrendously long. Every bullet point, every kind of arbitrary thing that this person's going to be doing day to day, and it isn't interesting. No one's going to be compelled to apply to that. You need to be articulating why the value proposition at the top. Why is someone interested in your business, full stop. Next, why are they interested in this role and what they be doing in a kind of light touch manner. They don't want 100 bullet points with every minute detail in there. And then what you're expecting from them, in terms of their skill set, but also personality and things that are actually interesting. A lot of the hiring that I see a lot of people do is based on personality. So if you're sending out a vanilla job description, how are you going to be communicating any of that and compelling people to apply? So that's the kind of the two areas which we see all the time, and they're blatantly obvious, but it's so common.
You're in quite a unique position where you're selling to businesses and business owners, and you're selling to candidates, so kind of the consumer at the end. There obviously are two completely different skill sets. How do you find it, like flicking from one to the other?
So it's a really interesting question. I'm not sure if it's one I've actually kind of thought about too much before. I know that when I first started out, there was a big difference in my mind between candidates and clients, but there really isn't now. So and the reason that changes is because a whole host of people that were clients, especially when you're dealing with bigger businesses, hiring managers and whomever else, become candidates. Because they're interested in another job that you're working on, or this, that, and the other, and it's a bit of a light bulb moment when you realise they're still people. They're just people at the end of the day. So that's probably a big step forward in actually whether you're a client or a candidate. You get the same from me in terms of how I am. But I think, to maybe answer your question more specifically, were you getting at the fact that kind of having to kind of sell our services to a client and then sell a opportunity to a candidate? They're obviously very different things.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I guess it comes back to the confidence of what you're selling. So I can talk very confidently about Matthew Oliver's and what we do and how we do it and why we're different. But because of the relationships that I have with our clients, I'm pretty confident I can do a damn good job at that as well. So we never just get an email with, "Oh, here's a job spec, can you try and find us people?" Definitely not from a new client. We will always have to have a call so that we can articulate what is interesting about that vacancy. And every call that I have with every candidate is firstly finding out what they want to do. And half of those calls end up with me saying, "Okay, well, thanks so much for that introduction. This role isn't going to tick your boxes. So there's no point me wasting your time talking to you about it, because you've said you want X, Y, and Z, and we don't do X, Y, and Z. So it's just not going to be good for you. But if something does come up, we'll let you know." But then it's just a case of having knowledge of that business, match it, just tick, in my head, I guess, a bit of a tick list of what they said they're interested in and how our role is going to fulfill those needs.
There's a big personalization piece, isn't there? Going through everything you've been saying. So it's like the personalization with as you said, with the videos, and the personalization with the company that you're going to work with, and
it's like a blend of marketing and matchmaking.
Oh yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Very
And
data map.
it's such a fine balance as well, and it does the hardest position I'm ever in is when I've got someone who on paper is fantastic, have the skills and everything else, but I know they're just not going to get on. So that goes back to the matchmaking piece, and that's not always the easiest conversation to have with someone, to tell them, look, you've got all the skills and everything and more that they've asked for. It's just not going to work, like you're just not compatible as individuals, kind of thing. No, it is an interesting one at times.
It's hard, isn't it? And I think when I first come into recruitment and growing my team and everything, I was so focused on, they have to have these skills, and this skills. And that was all I knew. And it wasn't until I've been on this journey for a lot longer that I've been like, actually, it's not all about the skills. You can have the most amazing person able to do the amazing things and do everything you need them to do. But if they haven't got the attitude or the values that we have as a business, it's never going to work. So it's such that hard balance, isn't it?
I completely agree. Sorry, Dan. Go on.
No, carry on, go on.
I was just going to say that, and I think your field is slightly more difficult, Cheryl, because obviously it's technical and transferable skills happen, but they have to be in a finance role. So it could be that they're in a company with multiple entities, and therefore maybe they could transfer across into practice quite well because they've got lots of different hats, maybe different industries they're used to. But for the most part, they have to be an accountant. Whereas with our other clients, that's one of the things that I champion the most, which is we really shouldn't be focusing on job title. Like we always say, job function over job title. So that's a key little phrase that we use all the time. So no matter what their job title is, completely irrelevant. We want to look at what they're doing. But not only that, it's then understanding the personality and the transferable skills. Because if you just want a square peg in a square hole, the candidate pool is inevitably less. Therefore, the chances are you're going to get not a lower caliber person, but not maybe the best possible fit, because we've only got 100 to pick from rather than 1,000. It's just economies of scale. It's just a statistic. So as those initial calls that we said we have with clients, we're always looking at, we want this person. And this is what they're doing day to day. Have we considered someone from this industry or this role or this, that, and the other that could fit? And actually, after 6 months of training and support, will be much better than someone that we've had to get from that industry, because that narrows the availability of candidates by such a margin.
Yeah, and you talk about obviously narrowing that pool of candidates. Obviously, with the changes over the last few years and flexible working and working from home becoming a lot more common. Well, I'd like to think it's becoming more common anyway. That obviously then widens the geographical area. So have you found that flexible working, A, has been embraced, but B, has had much of an effect on availability and the amount of candidates you can place in roles?
So absolutely, yes. I think a lot of companies have gone more hybrid than remote, and therefore they the radius, if you like, that we can search is larger, because if you need to go to the office twice a week, an hour and a half journey isn't so bad compared to if you've got to go 5 days a week. So we do always look at opportunities. If they're hybrid, then clearly we have got a bigger candidate pool to fish from. There are a number of businesses that don't do any of it, and they do subsequently miss candidates as a result. But some people are very focused on environment and the people and the team and that kind of stuff. And although you can do that remotely or even you can obviously do it hybrid, but it's not quite the same. But yeah, absolutely, that has had a positive impact on finding candidates when there is that, like, the geographical boundaries are less.
Yeah, I know it's definitely helped us because now we can recruit from anywhere in the UK,
Yeah,
which has been brilliant. 'Cause half of our team are not local at all,
no.
so it's been brilliant. And
I imagine
I think I'm well. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I think there's a bit of lag my end. Sorry to keep cutting people off. But I think with the benefit for you as well, Cheryl, is obviously where you are. In the UK, you could probably get away with 10-15% less on the salary because you haven't got the London waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, to be fair. But yeah.
You've got a very kind of you've developed kind of a very a unique way of working and a unique kind of philosophy of how things should be, how you like to do your business and how you like to deal with clients and candidates. There must have been some, let's say, events along the way that have kind of led to this is how it works.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how.
So I think
that's kind of.
Yeah, how we got there. So I think again, there's a couple of things really. I've come from a number of very high performing recruitment businesses. So I'm very aware of, and I don't just mean in kind of terms of revenue and all that kind of stuff, but genuinely, very effective at what they do. And so I've had some very good training throughout my career. The issue that I had with a lot of them, and this again where we try to differentiate ourselves, is the classic recruitment stigma stuff. So I appreciate I said toward the beginning of the call, I did get into recruitment because I was money motivated and that kind of stuff. So it served a purpose initially. But it's very dog eat dog. It's not a supportive or too much of a positive culture. There are a lot of negatives that go along with it, and that as a result develops people into doing certain activities, which I don't think is necessarily too beneficial. Definitely not in the long run. And these are the classic recruitment things that people get. So the cold calls, the incessant emails, the over promising, under delivering, all of this kind of stuff, which makes my life hard because when I first speak to anyone, they think, oh, it's another recruiter, but actually makes my life quite easy once we do get in the door because we've got clients that, I've worked with for years and years and years. Almost like one of the first ever Matthew Oliver's client is still very, a really a good client and really probably a close friend now even. So we've kind of had that journey, I guess, of learning about how to do things quite well, but not always in the best environment, and having KPIs to drive people often results in people cutting corners or doing whatever they can without really too much care and attention, at least in the industry that I'm talking about. So there was that, and just wanting to do a bit of a good job, if I'm honest with you. Like wanting to be someone who's reliable and people want to work with, and just genuinely build those relationships. And it pays dividends because we don't do any cold calling. We've got no like email campaigns or anything like that. When people just get berated with CVs or with let's do this, that, and the other. We do none of it. Yeah, exactly. And
it drives me mad.
Yeah. So and we get sent emails from people. I mean, I even get emails weekly, I'd say, off recruiters because they've seen one of our adverts for one of our clients. Like it's that bad. So, but all of this comes full circle, and from wanting to do a good job, we are in a position now where we get repeat, like all of our businesses, all of our clients are a repeat business. We get referred on to they're like peer to peer, so kind of accountants to accountants, if you will. We get people. We've got clients where we've been referred by one of our clients to one of their suppliers and to their customers. So that's how we're growing. And honestly, it makes my life as easy as it possibly could be. Other than the fact that recruitment is almost as hard as it ever has been, the fact that our clients are genuinely like really, really good, and they're because of how they've been, how they come to light. makes my life as easy as it can be. So we feel like we're doing a good job, but also it's coming full circle in that it means we're not having to get new clients every other week because we piss someone off.
Just a shout out to our sponsors, Xero, who I believe are the best accounting software out there for small businesses, and one of the reasons is due to payroll. And payroll traditionally is really horrible, hard task, not made easy by some of the softwares out there. Xero makes it simple and easy for you to run your payroll and pay your staff.
It's interesting you said about you learn from managing people's KPIs and things like that, ends in bad practices, cutting corners. So how do you go about managing your team?
The output. So that's a really good question. So we have a revenue target for the team, for the office, and that's essentially, so we're a business, so we have to make more money than we have costs. Otherwise, there is no such thing. So we have a revenue target, and we have a month, and then therefore we've got a deduced monthly target for each of our guys. That's the only numbers we have. So we don't have the fact that to give you a bit of an insight to some of the KPIs I've worked under before. You have to be on the phone for 2 hours a day. You have to make 100 calls. You have to go on, I think it was like 2 or 3 visits. So when you won't get this now, Cheryl, but any business owner might be aware of when recruiters just knock on the door to drop off a mug or whatever it is. It's a KPI.
I've had it in the past. Yeah.
There's no value in it, and if anything, you're just pissing them off because they don't. People want to talk to recruiters when they need recruiters. And we add value, I guess, because we talk to people when they're not just hiring to talk about talent strategy. And we've got a few clients that are always hiring very difficult skill sets. So we need to be, if they just say, right, we need someone now, it's not going to work. So we need to work 6 months prior to get to where we need to be. So we don't do kind of any of that stuff. And we don't micromanage. We don't do anything like that. So our environment here is drastically different, and we get clients popping in. I can't quite show you the behind, but it's a very laid back environment. We've got the Alexa's playing like some music. There are times where it's really quite quiet, which is really, none of my recruitment businesses are ever like that. And if they were, one of the managers would be like, get on the phone. We don't have any of that stuff. We have do a good job and bring in the revenue you need to, and that's, and that's it.
Okay. And is it you kind of, so it sounds like it's very much like, I don't care how you do it, Nish, we'll just, we'll get there and we'll get there eventually. And if not, ask for help and we'll get there together and that type of thing. Yeah. It's a much more of a nurturing environment than you haven't been on the phone for 2 hours, come and have a conversation kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's like generally how it would be. But so I work with the team, and we know we're a close-knit team. We know what each other have got going on, and from my experience, I can deduce where they're at in terms of if they've got enough on or not, and that kind of thing. And therefore, if maybe they need to focus a bit more time here or there. But you're right. The whole idea was to have a mature environment where people are responsible for themselves. And the message that I tell everyone, and in every interview I've ever had for Matthew Oliver's, I've said this, which something along the lines of that, as long as you're doing a good job and you're not impacting, negatively impacting candidates or clients, you can kind of work how you want to work. And all of our training is the same. So all of the training, I said I had good training previously, but it was training you to be a robot, not to be a person with a certain set of skills. So our training now is actually, we have a best practice. So if you do the best possible job at recruitment, all the touch points, making sure that, candidates know that you're there, and you talk to them before an interview and make sure they've got any last minute questions, and sending those one pages that I mentioned, all these little points that we do throughout the way. We've got a best practice, and that is the process. But how you go about it is determined on the individual. So the initial calls we have with clients, there used to be scripts or like literally pages of literature, and you just did it verbatim. Whereas I actually get them to go away, right, what information do you think we need? They come back and we compare notes, and I think actually maybe what about this, that and the other? And then I ask them to go away and say, right, what are the questions you will ask to get that information? Because their approach, I'm quite an outgoing, quite a confident individual. Not everyone's like that. You know, if I told Cheryl, right, you need to do this pitch, her approach, she would get equally as much out of someone through her own questioning rather than using my direct questions, you know?
Yeah, no, it sounds like we've got a very similar approach to business and managing a team, because I've learned from what I've experienced in the past and changed it around to what I would have preferred.
Yeah.
And similar to you, I treat my team like adults and trust that they will do what they need to do to get things done.
Yeah.
So, very similar. And I love that you've got that approach as well. I thought I was weird for being like that. So it's really nice to hear that somebody else is similar.
Yeah. And that kind of, it's always been something in my mind, I think, for forever. Like, I'm in business and business is competitive, and especially recruitment and sales. But one of the things that comes first for me is generally being a nice person, and I can go to sleep at night. I might not have got that fee because of whatever reason, but I don't really care because I did the right thing. And that is genuinely important. And a lot of this came actually when I set up the business in the first few months, and the realization of not working in those environments. To be fair, they weren't all like as bad as others. So, but the realization of being sat in that little bedroom, on my own doing this stuff, but with the freedom to do what I wanted, and I did some really, really good work. So clearly the results were there without all this stick and all the other rubbish. I felt that it would be a really good opportunity to create the whole culture around that and give people that same kind of feeling and freedom. And like, I mean, touch wood, we're coming up to 4 years old. We've doubled in size every year now, in terms of turnover and headcount and all that kind of stuff. So touch wood, it seems to be working.
Definitely, you've got a good reputation amongst us accountants, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and again, that side of the business is growing through recommendation, all the time. And again, it works really well for us because all of like the accountants' clients are potential clients for us. So we get recommended all the time through that, which I guess goes back to the not having to do cold calls and all that kind of stuff, because we provide a good service to the right people, and we get we get those bits and pieces coming.
So you said kind of earlier, and you kind of discussed the way that you like to work and how it goes forward. You said about your brother kind of influenced your decision to get into recruitment. There must have been quite a lot of influences along the way to kind of, not just through doing things differently, learning the way that you do things now, but there must also be people that influence the way that you do things. Who would you say have been influential?
Yeah, so good. Again, another good question, Dan. I think there's definitely a handful of people that have in my life, that a couple I haven't actually even ever worked with directly, but typically. I mean, Bristol is a huge hub for recruiters. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of recruitment businesses and recruiters here in Bristol. But you get to know each other, and through friends of friends and all that kind of stuff. And there are a couple of people that were just like genuinely down to earth, really approachable, nice people, doing fantastically well. So clearly it can work. And I did work with a couple of people, and my old line manager, I'd put in this same vein as well, who is, like quite soft natured, like he definitely gets the best out of people by not being an asshole. And he's genuinely a really nice guy. Everyone works with him. I mean, I don't know how big the amount of people he manages is now, but I would say it's probably 100, maybe more people, in a recruitment setting. And I guarantee all of them would say he's approachable and friendly and all of that kind of good stuff. So I've seen snippets of different bits and pieces, and I guess just my general approach. Like, I don't think I've ever wanted. I've never been the type of person that would kind of try and stitch someone up for my own gain. And I think therefore it's just. I wanted to create an environment where that was the norm. And I worked in businesses where it definitely isn't. So yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. What's obviously you've learned a lot along your journey, both before being in business and in business. What would you say is your biggest learning, and probably one that you haven't expected, because there's always things you don't expect to happen as well?
Yeah. Mine is without doubt time. So when I started the business, even when I started the business initially, the first, I mentioned earlier, 6 months, and then we went into a lockdown and all that kind of stuff. But still, that was fine. And I felt like I was more or less just doing my old job. But then as you start bringing in, a number of staff and all these different bits and pieces, there are days where, and I still recruit, like, I'm still very much talking to clients and candidates and all that kind of stuff. My focus now is probably more on the client side and having those relationships, because there's probably too many vacancies for me to be doing all of the candidate stuff. So that's the kind of the structure a little bit nowadays. But as I say, still very much recruiting, and there are days where I come in with 10% of what I used to do as a recruiter, and I don't get it done. And it is literally just the time element, because one thing happens, another thing happens. It's not even all just reactive. It's things that I knew I had to do, and it's just the days, as I think you've mentioned earlier, Cheryl, when we're talking about having hules, they just disappear. Like even today, the heroes. There you go. We'll get some kickback for that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's now the middle of the afternoon. By the time we've done, and I've done an hour or two, I'll be going to pick up my little girl from school. Well, it's not even that. Going to pick up my little girl from school, and that's it. The day's done.
It is, isn't it? It goes so quick. And how do you find? Because this is one thing that I've struggled with as the business has grown. How do you find trying to take or juggle the both of doing the actual client work and things and running your own business? And have you found that you're swaying more one way or the other?
It's probably where the biggest fire is, to be completely honest with you. But also just making time, and like as a business owner, and it's a proper. I'm not going to say it. As a business owner, you do it thinking you're going to have more time, and you don't. So you go from a 9 to 5 to working all the time, and that is categorically the fact of the matter. So it's. I've had bits and pieces in my diary that have been bumped every day this week, and then I've sat in the weekend. So when are they going to get done? They're going to get done over the weekend. It's that kind of thing. I have been, and I'm still continuing to read upon like time management and productivity and that kind of stuff for this exact reason. So I think, I plan my days and that kind of stuff, but the smallest thing can come up and it throws everything by hours, and then it's tough.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time my day actually went to plan and I got everything done that I'd planned. Yeah. It never happens, does it?
No, not at all. And I'm a classic example of underestimating time in every aspect of my life. So, if I tell my wife I'm going to be home in 10 minutes, it's never 10 minutes. Or if we're in the car, my little girl asks how long it's going to be, I'll genuinely say, so we're only 5 minutes, and it's, it's a 20-minute drive or whatever. And I'm not doing it to for any other reason other than I just completely underestimate the time. So in my diary now, I even over-egg it, and I still don't really manage to get it done.
Yeah, that's what I try as well. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect solution to that one, is there?
No, and I think I'm sure you've gone through this, Cheryl, where you hire someone and think, oh, fantastic, they're going to take 50% of what I'm doing. I've got 50% free time now. It's going to be excellent. But they join, and that time just disappears because a business grows or there's other challenges. But
you find a million and other things that you actually want to do.
Yeah. Like actually do some stuff on the business, which I guess that's what suffers. It's you don't do as much of the proactive on the business, structural, strategic training, whatever it might be, the finessing of those things. They unfortunately fall down by the wayside.
I do, and I've failed at that today. I say fuck, my coach told me off that. I've made steps today, but one thing I thought was going to be really simple, and I just get it done. it's opened up a wormhole of all these other things. And then I'm getting all these ideas. I'm like, oh, I could do it that way. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. And now this one little job that should have taken me like half hour is now probably going to take me a whole day.
Yeah. And you still got to do
There's a
everything.
book you need to read called Indistractable.
There's Indistractable.
Yeah, by Nir.
We both write that down.
You will. He's Nir. His surname is Eyal. It's called Indistractable.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. I've started a bit of a book club at work where two people every other week kind of read a book and then come back and share the key findings, so that between us we then cover off 4 books a month. But you don't actually have to read. You might have to read less than 1 book a month to actually get some of the value, if that makes sense. And then, if there's anything you particularly like from it, then you go and read it in your own time. But at least you've had a really good first-hand synopsis of what it's about.
It's a really good idea.
I like that. Who wants to start a book club?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do it with the guys, and I've had a few people say that, and I was like, well, we can do like one as well, because you read another book, I'll tell you the books that I'm doing. It still like works, you know.
You wouldn't want to see my book collection.
Well,
Yeah, mine's quite big.
Might have to sign up to Blinkist or something.
Don't. I've on my desk right now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 just on my desk. And there's a bookcase outside. So.
I think it gets worse, or I'm worse now on my Kindle, because I'm just like, oh, I like that one. Oh, well, download that sample. And then before I know it, I've got about 20 books on my Kindle.
Yeah.
Plus all the ones on the shelf.
Yeah. Well, I do find like I joke about the likes of Blinkist, but there are sometimes really good synopsis on YouTube. I'm not sure if you've ever looked, and they'll do like a little illustration to go with it. So sometimes when I'm driving, if I've got like a 30-minute drive or whatever, I'll stick one on, and you don't really take it in too well, but there might be 1 or 2 points that then you can just dive into a bit more, if that makes sense. So I find that quite a good one. There's a time tip. You asked for some, I gave you none. There's one. You can listen to those bits and pieces when normally you'd be singing along to J-Lo.
There's an insight into your listening list there.
How do you know what I do in the car?
Yeah, I know, and I'm not local.
So we've talked a lot, obviously, about your business and the industry and everything. And I think one of the things I wanted to touch on is everyone's version of success is different, and everyone is striving for different things. So it's really hard to give a definition for success. So I just wondered, what does success mean to you?
So this is a really interesting one, and I don't know if this is kind of specifically for me, or a lot of people feel this way. But what the definition of success changes. So when I started a business, I wanted to have, a good lifestyle, not have to worry about money, all of that kind of stuff, and I guess do it on my own terms. After running a business for a month, I think I mentioned, how much I enjoyed that initial period. It was actually, I don't care if I earn less. I don't care about any of that kind of stuff, as long as I'm doing something in an environment that is an environment I want to be in. And I set up thinking I would probably earn more, but in the first few months, it was quite a compounding feeling, actually, that I couldn't care less if I earn less. If I can pay my bills and stuff, I'm happy. The fact that I've got the flexibility to, I mentioned earlier, go and pick my little girl up from school, and in the summer holidays, I take off whatever time I want to be with her. It's those little things, and if meet my dad for lunch, or some like really ambiguous little thing, that is for me, I think, what success looks like. So it's being able to do those things, obviously not have the concerns about money and all those other bits and pieces, but to have that quality of life, versus being kind of chained to a desk. Well, I was going to say 9 to 5. It was 8 till 6:30, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what it is. That's what's important for me.
Just that freedom of choice.
Yeah. And I think that goes back as well to when I say about the setting up this business. You know, I want to have the same for these guys as much as possible. So you know, I'll tell everyone that, you know, as long as you're delivering what you need to be and you're available for candidates and clients, you're not just kind of providing a poor service, and you can do what you want. Like, I don't really care where you are or what you're doing or anything like that, as long as, you know, those three things are being done.
Yeah, same. I just wish more people took that approach. But
it's hard. And you can't trust everyone. You know, like there are people who will burn that bridge and that trust, and you know, it will obviously cost you in time or money or whatever. But
or both.
But yeah, you know, it's one of those things.
Definitely. Cool. Well, we're going to kind of wrap up in a minute. So I've just got one last question to ask you. So if you wasn't in recruitment and running Matthew Oliver's, what would you be doing?
So I would definitely be doing something with my hands. So one of the downsides of working in recruitment, I guess, like an accountant, you see everyone's money and you have an idea of that kind of stuff. Working in recruitment, you see all these jobs and all these types of things that people are doing. I would definitely be doing something where I am physically maintaining or building or constructing something with almost like an immediate tangible outcome, you know. So whether it be working in marine engineering, building a ship, or a carpenter, or anything like that, I think I probably wasn't really ever longed for an office, but it's just the route that I've gone down, and you know, obviously it served me well and all that kind of stuff, but you know, I love doing kind of little projects and like DIY projects or whatever it might be. I think that's probably something that would really interest me. I probably need people in there as well, though, so I'm not sure how that works. But yeah, you know, it's social interaction and that kind of thing is really good as well.
Yeah, I guess most construction-y type things, you'll be doing things as a team, aren't you? So
yeah,
there's your people outside.
Yeah, maybe project management, because then you kind of have the best of both worlds. But maybe that might be a bit too hands off. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I suppose the you know, just observing when we moved on to a new build estate that was still being built while we were on here, and quite often it would be one person alone in the house doing their bit before the next person went in, and then
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I said building site because it's cold and miserable and everything else.
Well, unless you go abroad somewhere and it's in the sun.
Actually, that's a great point. Yeah, I want to be some kind of construction guy in Barbados or something.
I like that one.
What about yourself? Am I allowed to ask questions?
What was that? Sorry, what about cows?
Am I allowed to ask questions?
You can ask questions.
What would you guys do?
Good question. I do know the answer to it. So Cheryl knows this because she asked me this question before. But I was meant to leave A-levels, school, college, whatever you want to call it, and go to the British School of Osteopathy to become an osteopath.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I would go and do that.
Would you? I've got. I quite often see an osteopath. So yeah, no, it's a good profession. You get to meet quite a lot of people.
Yeah. Something else happened in between. So.
Yeah, I still don't know what I would do because I feel like I'm living the dream at the moment, especially where I'm going with personal side of things, what I'm doing. It's just that feels so surreal, and I guess it would always be in helping people somewhere of some degree, but Yeah, I really don't know. I should have an answer for that one, shouldn't I?
I mean, I didn't give the best answer. I think when I get asked that question more lightheartedly, I say host of Top Gear. And that genuinely would be a fantastic job. Like, genuinely, I would love that. But I guess when people ask that question, they mean like a realistic job, not if you ask my daughter what she wants to be, it's not quite the same response, I imagine, as to what you were hoping for.
You can have any wildest dream. I always used to want to be a wedding planner because I love planning weddings.
From what age?
Where was I? Well, it was more like party planning and wedding planning because it looked glamorous and enjoyed that. When I was looking at leaving college, I did apply for a few wedding planning places. But yeah, I guess the other thing I would have done, and if my mother had let me, I wanted to go, because I used to be in a marching band and we had ties with some of the military bands.
Yeah.
And I was at one stage going to go and do that, but my mum put her foot down and said no.
Oh dear.
So
what did you play?
The clarinet.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Do you still play?
No.
I bet you still could.
Oh, I don't know now. I think I tried a few. I say a few years, but obviously the last few years don't count, do they? So I did try a little while ago. I will extend it a bit, and I couldn't even get a single note. So.
Oh dear. Well, at least I thought I was going to give you some content ideas, but it doesn't sound like it. Unless they're like epic fails.
That's cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been lovely to speak to you. And we'll pop all your contact details in the show notes. So if anyone listening wants to get in contact with you, they can do.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'd also love to hear your feedback, so please leave us a review or drop us a DM on our Insta @Found to Life Podcast.
See you in the next episode.